Welcome to the Good Life Podcast. My name is Tyler King, one of the ministers here at North MacArthur Church of Christ. Today, I've got Mel with me in the studio. Mel has been kind of overseeing our mission efforts here at North MacArthur for quite some time, kind of coordinating back and forth between the missionaries that we support and that we communicate with, and has always been doing a good job with that and making sure that there's an established communication as well as kind of an established vision from North MacArthur to these various works all around the world. So we're excited to kind of sit down with him and talk a little bit more about the mission side of things at North MacArthur. So when did you take over some of the mission work here at North MacArthur in terms of overseeing a lot of the works?
Yeah, so we've been back from Brazil since 2010, and slowly there was some staff here that made some shifts, and so they were in need of a family and youth minister. So we took on that role for a few years before then being more full-time at OC and more part-time-ish here. And so then when we made that move to spend more time at OC, I became the missions minister here. But even up to then, I was already helping with missions as just part of the missions committee that Jim Foltz was leading. So I kind of came along and would sit there, participate, and then was a member of it, and then eventually kind of was asked to coordinate a more active role there. So that's probably been the last 16 years, maybe last 10 or so, that I had a more intentional, active role in the missions committee.
And lots of changes have happened throughout the years in terms of like who we've supported.
Oh, for sure.
How we support them, even some of the works that you guys have gone over and seen. We'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of like involvement within these missionaries. So, I mean, overall, we've got quite a few different missionaries.
A lot, yeah.
We've got them in South Korea.
Yeah, all the way from South Korea, Brazil, Czech Republic, the Netherlands, Australia, what else? Like India. We have Bangladesh and Nepal, some places in Africa, the Philippines. Yeah, just to name a few. And we're involved all the way from church plant to some medical missions to some preacher training. To local works, right? Just down the street, South Walker to Navajo Reservation in Arizona. Just it's a quite varied group of partnerships that we have.
Which is really neat to see. I mean, we've got New Testament models for collecting funds and then sending them over. I think it's 2 Corinthians chapter 8 where Paul is commending the church in Corinth of, you guys have been great, you've shown love, you've shown generosity in the collection of the funds to go to the saints in Jerusalem as they're going through difficult times. And it's amazing to see North MacArthur. I remember coming here. I mean, it's a larger congregation, especially from where I'm from. But then to see even like the budget. And I know it's always weird to talk about money in relation to the church because, sometimes those two things don't go together really well. But I mean, in Paul's words and his way of thinking, he was astonished at the generosity. And I think that's kind of where I felt, I'm amazed at how generous this church can be towards mission efforts.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we can support all these different people from around the world.
Yeah, the church has been very generous and has had a long legacy of it, even way before I was here. I think from its very beginnings, it's been missional missional in emphasis, and it's just grown more and more. I think at one point we kind of had this saying that, the sun doesn't set because we're doing mission work everywhere. So the sun never sets in all our mission points, just to make the emphasis of how varied is our mission efforts throughout. And I like to use the sentence often, a legacy of missions, because we really have and have been involved in a lot of things. And I think in a lot of successful things as well.
Well, and so with that, just kind of break down a little bit of what some of your responsibilities are or some of the things that you've been doing lately with overseeing the mission work.
Yeah, we have a great committee, which is important to note. They're a lot of times behind the scenes. And like I said, Jim Foltz coordinated it and then was a part of it for many, many years. And I think part of that legacy is his efforts, although now he's more retired-ish and out and about doing some missions himself, right? He does some summer stuff. And part of a traveling group and some other things. But so there's always been a committee as far back as I know, and that's still true today. We have 3 guys that have been with me quite some time. We just had a new deacon added to it. So we have there's 5 of us, and there's been others that have come and gone to different degrees over the years. So that's a big part of it. So then my role is kind of with that committee. We try to stay in touch with our missionaries. We look through any incoming requests. We get requests all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Some valid, some iffy,
Yeah.
and then a whole lot of in between. Some that are good works, but might not just fit what we're looking for or the timing. So processing that, we're kind of the first contact for our missionaries as they might, at times have needs or prayers. We try to make some visiting, some trips. We try to keep that in front of the congregation. And, about half of our overall missions budget we try to raise it on a mission Sunday, so normally in September. So kind of coordinating that, promoting that, coming up with a budget, having those things approved by the that's kind of the responsibilities we have.
Yeah. And I mean, that's all very important. I mean, so from just an organizational standpoint, having a committee shows that all the decisions aren't being made by one person.
Yeah.
Because that could be detrimental, where it's just one guy leading the way of like, we shouldn't support this, we should support this, and then, just kind of letting everything else.
No, it's all decisions all made as a committee. Then and even that, we have a good partnership, here with the staff. I try to stay, involved with our staff meetings and whatnot. And a lot of the things that some of the works we decided to be involved with were suggestions from the staff. We often run them through the staff to also get an opinion. Our committee thinks about it. The staff is considered. Then eventually we put this on to the elders, who then also have a decision to be made. So it's a very collaborative. No one person is making these decisions either direction.
So then from there, you're making these decisions, and I mean, sometimes they're hard decisions. Where when do we move on from a mission work?
Those are difficult.
I know sometimes too there are like these time-stamped mission efforts where it's like, we'll support you for X amount of years, hopefully in the aspiration that you're going to become self-sustaining. Like, we're going to give you this long. And I know that from the congregation that I'm from, they had supported a missionary up in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And the agreement was like, we'll support you, but the goal is for us to not just be this constant source of income, that you'd eventually grow to a point to where you can be self-sustaining and then kind of go on from there. So making tough decisions like that, again, kind of communicating. Yeah,
those decisions are the hardest. I'm trying to remember the time I've been involved here. We have had a pretty low drama missions partnerships,
which is amazing because not always the case.
No, sometimes, you hear somebody embezzling or running off with, that's not been the case for us, which has been great. Most of our missions work, we've had long relationships with. But occasionally some of those decisions do need to be made, because our funds are finite, and we want to honor the leadership of the elders, the generosity of the congregation. We want to be good stewards. And occasionally we've had to discontinue some works. And we never take that lightly, because I've been a missionary and I know what the anxiety that is, right?
Yeah.
And of the times we've discontinued, it's never been, sorry, this is your last check. We've most often given them even a year, a warning, like, hey, here's where we're going this direction moving forward. We're going to be with you for this full year. But then at the end of the year, please know that we're going to have to discontinue. So those decisions thankfully, they're not very often, but the times they have been made. And once again, no one person is deciding that.
Yeah.
We talk amongst ourselves as a committee. We very often consider and request the staff to opine into it. And then we ultimately present this to the elders as recommendation. And the elders then make a final decision. So that's many, many people involved in that decision process. So when those are made, and they have in the past, but not often. A lot of prayer, conversations. If anything, at times we wait. We maybe, if we do err, sometimes we even wait too long to make some of these decisions, but we always do them very intentionally and very carefully.
Well, which is so good. I remember I was visiting a congregation, smaller congregation, and I had gotten lunch with one of their elders, and they had said, we had been supporting this missionary who we thought was doing really good work. He was actually just stealing photos off Facebook and sending it to us. And he said he was just living a very luxurious life overseas because of the money that we were giving him. And I guess he had been getting money from other congregations. And I could just tell the elder, this is funds that is coming from the church.
Yeah.
Hard-earned money from people who believed that it was going to a good place. And, this elder was just devastated at it. And he said, what do we do? And again, it all just comes down to communication and making sure that you're being diligent with this work. And it's so easy, I think, as modern Americans to say, I'm just going to send money wherever. I remember talking with some missionaries who were over in Tanzania. They were from Alabama. They had moved over to Tanzania to originally set up like an agricultural school to teach Tanzanians how to properly irrigate and grow crops and produce and everything. And the missionary who had been over there for a long time had gotten sick, got cancer, and then passed away.
Oh, wow.
So they picked up that baton and started, doing a lot of the church stuff in addition to agriculture. And we had passed by a truck that was handing out Tom's shoes.
Oh,
Tom's, that little brand. It's pretty big now, where they would agree that if you bought a pair of shoes, they would send some pair of shoes over to a country in need. And they said that's been one of the worst things for this country, because it puts all these local shops out of business. They're free shoes. To some degree, well, I'm glad that Tom's is giving away free shoes. But at the other end, it's devastating.
Yeah, good intentions, but sometimes helping hurts.
Exactly. And you don't know that unless you're there and you're communicating and experiencing everything that's going on.
And some of our works are us supporting local folks, from that country. I was born in Brazil, so I'm going back to Brazil. Some of the works we're involved in the Navajo reservation. Those folks grew up in that reservation. Some of the works we have in India, they're from there. So we're mindful of that. Now, have we always? Can't guarantee everything's always done right, as God, in spite of us, does great things, or sometimes through us, sometimes in spite of us. But we are very aware and mindful of trying to be intentional about that support. And when we decide on a new work, like I said, lots of heads go into making that decision. We call folks, we track things down, we try to be as mindful as we can to call references. And so we try to do as best as we can to prevent that, because that does kill momentum, right? If so-and-so was stealing money and church gets discouraged, and then you just kind of go from there. So one of the things we try to do, COVID really put a mess into this, but we're trying to get that going again in a more intentional way, is to make trips, right? At least once, sometimes more a year. We're hoping to do more, to where we visit our works. We don't just, send them checks. We visit the works. We stay in touch. We read reports. We have virtual calls. And that's part of one of the things we're wanting to do different, Tyler, is the missions committee has been having this conversation for a few years. And then the elders recently kind of brought up that themselves. And so I think the timing of it's all pretty good for it, is to have somewhat of a shift on how we do our partnerships, or what we do with our partnerships. Instead of just every year looking to let's add one more, let's add one more, let's add one more, let's add one more, and then sending, just a few $100s here, a few $100s there. We'll still be open to whatever God brings our way.
Right.
But instead of just actively trying to just add to, 1, 2, 3 every year, we already have a very long list of mission works. What would it look like if instead of that, while still being mindful of whatever doors God opens, what if instead of just adding, since we have a pretty good partnership with our missionaries, if we refocused it to be more intentional, more engaged, more resource-based? Financially, can we support who we're supporting? Can we support them more fully? If anything, most of missionaries probably take a sacrifice as they go about their finances. And so are there needs that we can support? Are there some one-time things we can do more intentionally for, especially the ones we are sponsoring congregation of? So that's one thing. The other is, can we be more of a resource church in terms of not just finances, but like, can we be more intentional in our visits? Can we go and visit them more often? Can certain like staff members, church members, deacons, others, can we go and visit? Can we also, because of technology, be a resource in the sense of, can we connect our missionaries with our elders for some kind of like mentoring? Can we connect them more intentionally with our staff for, be able to just pick their brains and talk about things? And just sometimes being a missionary, you can feel quite alone and carry a heavy burden. Can they have these conversations? Can we connect some of our deacons? Can we find ways for our congregation to know more closely some of our missionaries through letters and video calls and prayers? And so we're still unpacking what all would this shift look like, but what we're trying to do moving forward, especially as we look towards our Mission Sunday this year, and this is why we're recording this as well, to try to explain this to our listeners and our congregation specifically, the somewhat shift we're wanting to make, where we might not just be adding new missionaries every year, but to try to be a better, more engaged, more resourceful, more encouraging, more connected. And so that's kind of what we're trying to think through.
Which is, so important to do, because again, I think, well, how do I feel good about my giving? It's by giving as much as I can to as many different areas as I can. If I can, give $100 or $1,000 or whatever it is, and if it can reach multiple lives, that makes me feel better about it. When in reality, the whole idea of being a cheerful giver, as is commanded through Scripture, is knowing where that money's going and knowing the lives that it's impacting. And again, that happens through communication. And so, again, sure, you can flip the bulletin over, see this laundry list of works and things and feel good about that to some degree. But arguably, it's way more impactful and powerful if you recognize the names and have stories attached with the names and know what they're going through, and even kind of building up that relationship a little bit more. It's different than, I remember Wendy's or Burger King, anytime that it was my birthday growing up as a kid, they'd send a coupon in the mail, and it was, go get a free Frosty over at Wendy's. Okay, well, I appreciate that, and it was good. But then I would get a letter from my grandpa with money in it, and now looking back, those mean way more.
Yeah, for sure.
Than just some mass sent out, coupon for a free Frosty.
Yeah, the relational connection.
Yep.
And also, we want, mission work is hard. Ministry is hard, right? Yep. Mission work is hard. And we want to not just send money, but how can we truly help and engage and support and encourage to think through the longevity of the work. So that our missionaries aren't burned out or not discouraged, that the work doesn't suffer, to truly be more partner-like and more collaborative with. And, even our summer mission trip that we do has that in mind. We try to go to places that are works that we support so that our members can meet these folks and have a relationship, and we try to go back to. And so even that, right, we're going here to the Navajo Reservation later this summer to help with the Totochinis, and our members that go know them and get to know them and meet people and see the house and see the efforts and see the ministry and see the church. And so those are all for longevity's sake, while also keeping the work in front of our congregation also, I think, motivates generosity. So we're still unpacking what all this
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say it's a major shift, but it is a shift. We have done a good job, but we want to do better to be more intentional in our support than just, once again, keep adding work. So we're trying to think of ways to work through the details. We're collaborating in some of our conversations. We're trying to put some information out to our members, and so that we're all on board on this shift.
Cool. So that'll kind of take place this year.
Yeah, this year moving forward, we're trying to make this shift. And some of that will take some time as we also shift a budget, right? To be able to allow for some maybe more of these trips, more resources. Maybe we can send, care package books. When our missionaries come on furloughs, what would it look like if we also gave them, hey, take a weekend here and we're just going to pay for this hotel. So, or even, hey, we'll pay for you to have this conversation with this counselor, to make sure your marriage is okay. Like that kind of thing, are ideas of what this might look like. So like I said, we're thinking through it, but this year moving forward, we're trying to do something slightly different.
Well, very cool. And I think that just helps this idea of giving. I mean, so much of our system in America is exactly that. It's systemized and it's checkbox. And I mean, we've
all
talked about
productivity.
Exactly. And efficiency. And now that we've made giving online, that's even more efficient. You can set it up to auto deposit and you don't even think about it anymore. And I know several congregations who after COVID, they went back to passing the trays because there's something intentional about either writing a check or dropping money in the plate and knowing like, I'm giving that money over, and
it's in the forefront of my mind.
Exactly. And you're making that more, I don't know, practical and tangible. And that helps, remind us our money is going to furthering the kingdom. And, some of the stories, I mean, you have an incredible story of, your dad coming from Brazil over to America, going back to Brazil, you guys coming over, then going back and then coming back. And I mean, those are just a couple of stories. You look at all the stories of these missionaries and the stuff that they go through on a weekly basis would just rock our world from a Western comfortable lifestyle. And so getting more exposure on that, getting more connected with them, I think is very great. And I don't know, I'm excited for the next year in terms of the missions, that it's not just the same old rinse and repeat. We lost a missionary, we're signing a new one up. Or we got 4 more prospects. We're going to sign them all up and make that list bigger on the back of the bulletin to make ourselves feel better. But that it's a much more intentional process of giving and being connected.
Yeah. So keep us in your prayers, as we look to make some of these shifts. And, the missions committee is always open to ideas, suggestions. Any of us can be approached and talked about any of this or even concerns. Because like I said, we're trying to think through what this looks like. But we do think it sounds like a better approach since we have such a solid group of connections and mission support already.
Yeah.
What would it look like to do some of this different?
Well, very cool. Well, thanks so much for your time and for kind of, revealing a little bit more about the missions work that's going on at North Mac and some of the things that are going around the world. And looking forward to seeing some of these changes in the next few months.
All right. Thanks.